if we look at it from the lens of compensation, your body will compensate for a really long time for, for these underlying imbalances until it just doesn't compensate anymore. And so this happens especially, like, we'll notice this especially postpartum, especially in perimenopause and especially in menopause. That's where these underlying issues become really pronounced because there's a really big shift happening in your hormones. They don't always bounce back. And that's why I hate it when people are like, bounce back after pregnancy. I'm like, it doesn't work that way. um, there is no bouncing back. There is working your way back to health, right? So to me, it makes sense when we look at kind of the timeline of those changes. You had, you were kind of entering maybe the beginnings of perimenopause, early beginnings of perimenopause, and then pregnancy, and then weaning, which is a whole other hormonal shift that happens. And now you're closer to your mid 40s at that time than early 40s. So to me, it makes sense that that's where that symptomology would show up for you. Biggest thing for you is I think, getting the liver support. And again, that methylation is a piece of that. So the methylated B vitamins are going to help the liver to continue metabolizing. And then, focusing on the castor oil and the liver supporting foods. And then the other piece to migraines is inflammation. We know based on clinical data that estrogen it causes a dilation of the blood vessels in the brain. So shifts in estrogen. And so the nerves that are wrapped around those blood vessels are what get inflamed and lead to a migraine for some people. So we know that when we begin to really support that detoxification of like the toxic, harmful estrogens, that's why we see a reduction in menstrual migraines for women. The second piece to this is for women who are prone to migraines, whether they're hormonal or not, there's usually an underlying source of inflammation in the body. And typically it hangs out in the gut. So this is why, like, even though, we may not have in the modules, like this module is specific to migraines. It's specific to all hormone symptoms, because when we're working on healing the gut and reducing inflammation and supporting neurotransmitter function, that all supports like shutting down all of those like high inflammation, all of that high inflammation that is triggering the other piece of the blood vessel inflammation. Does that make sense? So it's kind of a double-edged sword for women with migraines. And it's why we tend to see this kind of like slow reduction in either the intensity of the migraines or the frequency of them as we're moving through that process. The liver plays a pretty big role in the inflammation of the gut. So if there was a lot of focus on inflammation, but not like the precursors of that, which is supporting the liver and detoxification, you're only getting a couple pieces of the puzzle.